Hi, this is VR Tapscott. Welcome to another episode of Recycled Drivel, where not only do I take stuff I wrote a couple of years ago and talk about it, I'm also slowly converting it to video. I consider this pretty much the ultimate upcycle. All rights reserved, copyright 2025 by VR Tapscott. Podcast number 17, Lost Religions, written July 16th, 2022. My original title was Is Religion Dying Out? But I thought that was kind of really too inflammatory and not the reason I was writing. I believe that our regular religions continue strong, and although I think that some of the same problems I detail below haunt the major religions, it also depends on what you call a religion. I kind of covered my thoughts on mainstream religion in my blog around Easter, which was Are Bunnies the Answer? But I'm thinking more in terms of the lesser religions like Star Wars and Star Trek and big V8 muscle cars, maybe tossing computers there too. I have a feeling, though, honestly, that these are fading because they're losing relevance since the people who cared about them are passing through the system and not really attending church anymore. Let's go back in the dim and decent past. I owned a Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 1 computer when I was young. A few years later, IBM came on the scene with the new fancy IBM computer. A myriad of other manufacturers were on the scene at that point, including Apple. For that matter, Apple actually beat out Radio Shack for being first on the scene. So there were massive religious wars over which computer was better, and there still are to this day, although the two factions have been reduced pretty much to Mac users and PC users. There's still hundreds of PC makers, although a lot of them have shaken out as well. What about Star Wars? Does it have the advantage that it's pretty much been in front of us for their entire life of the product, which is something like 45 years now? Star Trek? Technically, Trek has been around with us for even longer than wars, having been born in maybe 1968, maybe 1966. The big V8 muscle cars are still really popular with the people who liked them and belonged to that group in the 60s and 70s. By the middle of the end of the 70s, though, the handwriting was on the wall and the power had been reduced to a shadow of its former self. I don't think the 84 Corvette topped 200 horsepower. The good news from that corner is the big power is back, although it's not necessarily only from the big V8 engines. Amazing things can happen with lots of tuning and turbos. My Saturn Sky has a tiny 2-liter engine that puts out an astounding, practically from the factory, 325 horsepower. So that weighs 600 pounds less than my 94 Corvette and puts out 25 more horsepower. You do the math. Okay, as per usual, I wander along and I finally get to my point, I hope. I don't think that these religions are dying out. I think it's the social spirit that actually started the whole thing is dying out. It's the community spirit that somehow seems to be missing. As an example, in the mid-1980s, we were consumed by the PC and Mac war. We had local bulletin boards where you could log in with your 300 bits per second modem and leave messages for other people to read. Some people would even check their messages several times a day. Imagine that. We had pizza parties and we'd actually meet those faces behind those bulletin board messages. We'd see who it is that advocates for the PC and the Mac. Heck, I ran one of the major local bulletin boards, BBSs, on a TRS-80 with floppy disks for storage. We all knew each other. And then the internet came along with its amazing social promise, and you could get to know people all over the world. The people you got to know were sadly faceless, though. I mean, yeah, you could post pictures, but you never knew if they were real, and you'd never sit across them and eat pizza. And the local bulletin boards went away, as did the local community. So what I'm wondering is, are all those people still out there? I mean, the social demographic? Does the Toyota or the Subaru have that kind of following? Does every generation have their big V8 and Star Wars equivalent? Star Wars basically founded a religion. Where do you go to church now?